All right, friends, I'm sure people will keep coming in, and that will be fine. We intend for this to be about a half an hour presentation, and I'm pretty sure I'll stick around for questions. I don't know, maybe you will too. We'll find out. So, Mike Mobley and I are going to give the presentation today. The reason I've asked Mike Mobley to do that is he's served on the administration team, and in the new structure, Mike will be the financial lead on the church board. And so Mike and I and a team of other people have really thought through how we want to talk about this year's planned giving and planned expenses, or the budget. So, Mike, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Pastor Joe, Betty Joe. Friends, the handout you have before you is a look at our planned stewardship, or what folks connected to the church are planning to give in 2024, and the planned expenses to fund the ministry into which we have been called by God in 2024. We will come back to that in a moment. A quick look back at 2023 for context. We projected that the gap between planned giving and planned expenses in 2023 an anticipated loss of $89,985. Through generous giving and careful spending, that gap has been closed. But we still incurred roughly a $46,000 loss. When we say the church incurred a loss, we mean that to say that the reserves we used to meet the gap between actual giving and actual expenses. In 2023, we used approximately $46,000 of our reserves. In 2022, we used approximately $4,000 of our reserves. In 2021, we used approximately $14,000 of our reserves. Now let's look at our planned giving and planned expenses for 2024. You can refer to the handout for this discussion. When we talk about planned giving, we are talking about commitments that people have made known and regular giving patterns of those who have not made their commitments known. We are planning on $396,413 of giving in 2024. This is approximately $17,000 less than last year. We are starting the year with roughly 18 less commitments than we had last year, and that shows up in decreased planned giving numbers for this year. When we talked about planned expenses, we're talking about what it costs to do the ministries to which we hear God calling us. These are not just numbers, but numbers that represent real ministries that are drawing people to God and changing lives. Planned expenses for administration area of our ministry is $92,850, a planned increase of roughly $11,173. Real ministries funded by this area include things like live streaming our worship services to our members and to folks who are meeting us for the very first time. Maintaining our building and property for church occasions like connections, events on Wednesdays, worship on Sundays, and community groups who use our building like the Cub Scouts and our local election officials who will welcome numerous neighbors into our building to cast their votes on election day. Planned expenses for apportionments are our connectional ministry with the United Methodist Church are $51,120, a planned decrease of roughly $456. Real ministries funded by the apportionments include things like the appointment process we are in right now, which will bring the right person to be next pastor of our church, providing the funds to pay Pastor Nancy to be a steady pastoral presence to us this past summer. Planned expenses for the Connect area of the ministry are $5,850, a planned decrease of roughly $1,494. Real ministries funded by this Connect area are our planned expenses, include such things like Sunday hospitality that turns guests into friends, an upcoming mental health for caregivers presentation we are hosting to bless our members and our neighbors. Planned expenses for the Engage area of the ministry are roughly $500, a planned decrease of $5,000. It is important to note that the $5,000 from dedicated monies will enable us to fully fund our Engage ministries, and they include such things as packing weekend backpacks of food for children in our neighborhood who experience food insecurity. Infrastructure for our core crops for crop garden that often produces over a ton of food for our neighbors every summer. Planned expenses for the grow area of our ministry are roughly $6,501, a planned decrease of $341. Real ministries funded by the grow area of our planned expenses include such things as our new children's worship experience every Sunday, where children are learning how prayer and singing are part of the worshiping God. A weekly Sunday evening gathering of our youth around a meal and a time of learning and growing together in faith. Planned expenses for the staffing areas of the ministry are $314 and $353. Let me repeat that. $314,453, a planned decrease of roughly $16,612. Having 9 mostly part-time staff at the church means we're able to do things such as provide the appropriate digital presence that allows a same-gender couple with children who moved to the area to reach out to us because they knew that the church would be welcoming for them. Gather people to lead a fall festival for our neighbors that exceed 100 children and families this year. Planned expenses for the worship area of the ministry are $12,350, a planned decrease of $4,308. Real ministries funded by the worship area of our planned expenses include such things as presenting a beautiful cantata for Christmas that reached 198 people in the building and many more through our top quality live streaming. Creating a new intergenerational worship opportunity during the Holy Week that provides space to learn about Jesus washing the disciples' feet at the Last Supper, and then gave folks the opportunity to put that into practice as we created grocery bags filled with the items needed for prompt customers to make a meal at home. Perhaps you can tell our planned expenses have been made strategically, frugally, and with an open heart to the ministry of God is calling us. Still, the distance between our planned giving and our planned expenses represents a loss of $87,110. As a side note, that away from the script, because you know I had to do it. The one thing I want to carefully point out, and you could see from the itemization we provided to you that we're making a number of cuts, really as much as we possibly can, in terms of our expenses, trying to be as lean as possible in managing our expenses to match up with our revenues or our stewardship. But we can't go any further in doing that unless we are going to jeopardize the ministries we have committed ourselves to. And I don't think anyone wants to do that. So we need to take that in light, that we are being as lean as possible in preparing our budget for this coming year, or our current year now, and that we are calling on you to really take that in mind as we continue through the year.
I don't think that was off script at all. Just wasn't in print.
Okay.
You know what, I said something in air, Mike, when I introduced you. I introduced you as a financial lead, and then Bob walked in, and I thought, oh, no, Bob Johnson's the financial lead in our new church structure, or will be. Mike is the Property management group leader. There we go. Anyway, thanks, Mike. This first sentence I'm about to say is the most important, well, one of the most important, and we carefully crafted this. Friends, the truth is we cannot fund the ministry to which God calls us at this level of planned giving or our stewardship for more than 2 years without running out of money in our reserves to cover the loss. I'm going to say it one more time. The truth is we cannot fund the ministry to which God calls us at this level of planned giving or stewardship for more than 2 years without running out of money in our reserves to cover the loss. Over the past 9 years, our planned giving has really remained flat, while the costs of ministry have steadily increased, just like the costs of maintaining your homes have increased over the last 9 years, and your wages have increased over the last 9 years. So when we look at the deficit between planned giving and planned expenses, and we know that our planned giving has remained flat for 9 years, what we have before us is not a spending problem, but a stewardship problem. We cannot fund the ministry to which God calls us without an increase in our overall stewardship as a congregation or our planned giving as an entire congregation. We need a concerted effort over the next couple of years to fully fund the ministry to which God calls us. The people who have been working on how we're going to think about this have talked about how this is not a deficit we can take care of in 1 year. That we need to be working on it to really move toward a balanced budget over the next 2 or 3 years. To that end, we want to challenge every family giving unit in the congregation to give, this is the ask, $50 more per month. Not just this year, but ongoing. This is a matter of raising the level of giving permanently, not just as a stopgap measure for the deficit we're going to experience this year. We challenge you to give it a try. Let us know that you intend to give $50 more per month for the rest of this year for stewardship, and see if you can trust God to bless your efforts. When we are generous with our resources, maybe even stretching beyond what we think is possible, God meets our generosity with what I call enough. It might be that more income comes your way to make up the difference. It could be that you make some sacrifice in order to be generous, and then you learn you can live without that thing that you sacrificed. Or it could be that you will discover such a deep blessing in being generous that you want to create space in your family budget to be more generous with God and the ministries of the church. I believe that if you give it a try this year with the intention of continuing year after year, you're going to find that God is faithful, and your generosity will not only bless the ministries of the church, but it'll bless your lives as well. Now, we are aware that not everyone will be in a position to make a commitment to give $50 more per month. We also know that some of you will hear $50 more per month, and it will not feel like that big of a loss to you. What we ask for everyone is not so much an equal share, though that is what we're saying. What we're asking is for an equal sacrifice. If you can do more, please do more. If you can't give a full $50 per month, give a portion of that, knowing that someone else will make a sacrifice equal to yours that might cover that difference. We ask that everyone makes a deeper giving commitment to the ministries to which God has called us. We ask that everyone give not an equal share, but an equal sacrifice, trusting that God will bless us as we increase our overall level of stewardship within the church. Next week at the annual meeting, I will be reiterating this challenge so that everyone will hear it. And there will be a concrete way next week to put in writing the sacrifice you intend to make and the increased level of giving to the church that we can expect from you, because it's helpful to know. We can make better financial decisions when we know. Between now and then, I invite you to be in conversation with God for that kind of discernment in your lives and with your family. So I'm going to summarize what Michael and I have said. We're projecting an $87,110 gap between our planned giving right now and our planned expenses. Our expenses are a frugal estimate of what it costs for the ministries to which God has called us, and it really utilizes dedicated monies in many areas to make up the difference. Eden Prairie United Methodist Church's planned giving has remained flat for 9 years, at least 9 years, that's the data I have going back. And our expenses have risen because of the rising costs of everything over the last 9 years. What we have isn't an expense problem, but a stewardship challenge before us. And we are asking you to consider giving $50 more per month, not just this year, but ongoing. See if you can trust God with your generosity born in your sacrifices, and see if God won't find a way to bless you and bless your efforts. All right, that's our prepared information. Now I imagine there might be questions, comments, things we need to talk about together. Good deal. I wanted it to leave 15 minutes, so yeah.
You mentioned that
I'm going to give you a mic because we're recording, so.
Okay, you mentioned that in last year we had a deficit similar to what's presented here, and some of the income was better than what you had projected.
Yes.
So the loss was about
46. Books aren't closed yet, but Connie, we're thinking 46,000.
And
Okay.
you said that you use your reserves for that.
Yes.
What are our reserves?
Connie, do you want to answer this question, or do you want me to? I'm going to bring you a mic if you want to. Tell me if I lie, okay? I have their sheet in front of me. So we have, this is as of January 15th. We had 33,000 in our checking account and another 55 in our money market account, which feeds our checking account. That's our reserves, right, Connie? Yep. Then we have dedicated monies, and we have a, the language is just escaping me. The permanent trust fund that also funds 2 pools of money to be used for benevolence and outreach. And we're using some of those this year to cover some things in the budget.
And that fund is a restricted fund?
That fund is restricted. We spend 3% of the interest every year. Or we allocate 3% of the interest every year to those 2 areas. Yep. Deb, I'm going to bring you a microphone.
Can you talk about giving units?
Yeah, sure. I think she's teeing me up because she knows the answer to that question. We have, so far this year, we have 91 giving units. 92, because we added one this last week. We have 92 households that have let us know what they plan to give in 2024. Last year we had 109. So I looked, Connie, at 2 years ago, and it was in the 90s also. So people don't always tell us what they plan to give. And part of the number of planned giving that you see there is Connie's best estimate, our best estimate of what we expect from people who don't let us know, but they consistently give, and we think we can expect. And let me just tell you, Connie's very conservative in that number always. And we always overshoot it, but better to be conservative than to plan on something we aren't going to, that's not going to come in. So, yeah. Someone over here too. You have to raise your hand again. So.
Can you explain a little bit about how apportionments are figured out?
No, I can't. I'll tell you that there's a much simpler formula than it has been in the past. It's really based on our budget, on our membership, and something else that I can't remember. Probably I should know that before I move into my next job. You know, look at, I'm going to ask this lady who works at the annual conference to tell us. Look at that.
Yeah, it's very complicated. We're trying.
It was worse.
Was it really?
Oh, yeah.
But the number comes from?
Yeah, go ahead and tell, Lisa.
It's a 3-year rolling average of your membership, not worship attendance, your active membership rolls, and your expenses.
Yep.
3-year average. And then it's a formula, 85% of your apportionment's based on your expenses, 15% is on your membership number. and it's a 3-year rolling average. And I will say, for this year, they just went up, or maybe even went down.
I think they went down this year.
Could
Yep.
be, because last year there was what we call the statistics or the tables that the staff enter every year to give us the conference year data. There was a jubilee, so.
Some of us
which
rejoiced.
Is rejoiced, but yet, so we're still working then off of averages from prior years.
Yep.
Not the most current, and that has hurt some churches because their membership maybe went down, but that's what it's based off of.
So, and I know this isn't the question you asked, but you maybe have heard me say a couple, back in November, that we have had 26 churches, I think that's the number, leave our Minnesota annual conference. That changes our annual conference budget as well, and so next year will be different again. So, someone over here raised their hand and I missed it, or they, okay, got their question answered. What else? Good. Karen, I'll be right back.
I think just to clarify too, that number for the apportionments comes from the conference.
Correct. Yep.
We get a bill, if you will.
Yep. Yep.
But they go through the computation. I had a question about the staffing. What is behind the reduction of 16,000?
That's a really good question. We have, there are 2 places in our staffing where we have saved some money this year. One is being without an administrator. Well, you're not talking about, let me talk about next year. We have an administrator. We cut her hours back from what we were paying Becky because we felt like maybe we could do that more efficiently. So that's the majority of the savings. And then because we're not doing Wednesday evening programming regularly during the school year, we don't have the need for nursery care attendant during Wednesday nights, more randomly and then during Lent. So those are the 2 places where that savings comes from. Nobody got an increase in wage this year, but there was an increase in healthcare costs. Surprise.
So talk about where we are at kind of from a membership standpoint, and are we going up? Are we going down? Are we, and when we talk about kind of active members? And
So Karen, I think I can answer that question. Our membership has been decreasing over the last few years, and that is primarily a matter of cleaning up the rolls in terms of people who have been on the rolls for a long time but haven't been active, and sort of cleaning that up. So let me just say that active membership is a little bit of a squishy target post-COVID. So, I mean, I could have members who are active online and I might not know it because they might not fill out the Connect card. Our administrator took me aside last week and said to me, Becky Jo, I want to have a conversation about the distance between those who register their attendance and the number the ushers are giving me. There's such a big gap. To which I said, I totally understand that. And it was like 30 people, and I was like, that's all? That's pretty good. What other questions do you have? Or comments? I mean, this is a time for us to talk together. Yep.
So over, gosh knows how many years, we've been doing a deficit budget. And it seems like at the end of the year, the deficit isn't as much at the end of the year as before. And my comment is that's not going to happen as much this year because of the decreases in the expenses that we already built into this budget. In the past, our budgets from the various ministries, it seems like they were asking more than they spent, which contributed to the decrease in the deficit, making it not as bad. I think my word of caution, if people are still thinking along those lines that, well, at the end of 2024, it's not going to be 87, it's going to be half of that or whatever. I guess my comment is that's not going to be the case this year, because look at the expenses, and the expenses are decreased. So there isn't the fluff to have that reduction in the deficit. So,
We've tightened that up quite a bit this
right,
year.
so,
Yeah.
so if somebody's under that mindset because of what has happened in the past, I think my cautionary tale is that I don't see that happening as much this year.
Yep. It was 89,000 something. That was the projected shortfall, and it ended up 46.
46,000.
Yep. Yep. Yes. The 2023 shortfall was projected to be 89,000. It ended up 46. And that's not as close as we hoped to get, obviously. And I think you're right. We've been trimming the budget closer and closer to what's actually gets spent, and our staff are being much more frugal about how they spend money, and our leaders are being much more frugal about that. So I think Bruce is right. There's not a lot of fluff in the budget. Let me tell you that we didn't go $50 a month. We didn't pick that number out of the air. If 91 giving units who are already giving to the church do that, that represents about $50,000. And we feel like that might be a long way toward getting closer to. Now, will it get all the way? Probably not. But we're not thinking about getting us all the way this year. This is about taking a really leap forward this year. Okay. I'll be right back, Connie. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I just have a comment that in regards to what Bruce was talking about. I think I can't speak to last year or even the year before, but I think our experience many times in how we came out better than what we had budgeted was that we had people who stepped up and gave more than what they had pledged. And I think I think we've seen that happen, but we can't count on that, obviously. But I think that does now. It sounds like in 23, we ended up still having a fairly big deficit to fund.
Yeah, and I'll share with you that, and Connie, please correct me if I'm wrong. Our giving that was not committed, so our unpledged giving, if that helps you, was vastly higher than we had anticipated, and our pledge giving was under what people pledged. That's kind of a first for us.
That's about the first, yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
So that was interesting. And we did lose some givers this year who were not committed to the inclusive vision that we've set forth, and so that's part of the story. Yeah, I'm going to give Connie the microphone. Unless she's not. Are you coming down here? I mean, you'll be on camera if you come down here. Which everyone's dream, right?
Well, I just wanted to say, I mean, Becky, Joe, and I discussed several times whether we went out and asked for more money in 2023. And maybe we regret it, maybe we don't, I don't know. But, yeah, exactly, doesn't matter. I mean, I think part of my message about that is we could have done that. But this is not a one-time issue. That would have fixed this year, but it doesn't fix the years going forward. So when we're asking for this additional commitment, it's not for 1 year. If we want this church to continue to operate, we have to up our giving. That's the bottom line.
Thanks, Connie. I never like to put the person who deals with the finances in front of you to say that, but Connie's right. Connie's reiterating what we've said. One more comment, and then I'm going to close this time, and we'll have off-camera conversation.
So I think it's also true to say that the largest line item, which is staffing, has some fluidity to it because we only know Becky until June, and then we don't know.
Right. There's that too. Yep. That is very true, and the annual conference is very much aware of what you are paying me in my salary and in my housing allowance, and that my salary is higher because we only pay half of my health insurance. So just know that the conference, they also know, because I made sure they knew, that we're projecting this kind of deficit this year. So all of that is in the cabinet and the bishop's minds as they think about who to appoint here and what salary package to offer that person.
So if we get a pastor that doesn't have a pastor as a spouse, the health insurance is probably going to be double.
It is absolutely double.
Yes.
Yep, if they have family coverage. So let me close this time in prayer, and then some of you have to go to food for thought, or you might have to get, not you, somebody else might have to get children. They already left, it looks like, but let's pray together, and then we'll close this time. God, I thank you for willing hearts to come out today to hear about the financial situation of this church. And I pray, God, that as next week they hear about the vision that you've been unfolding among us, together we'll understand why it's so important to fund the ministries we're talking about. Be in the lives of our members in these next 2 weeks, that they would hear your call and that they would be attentive to your spirit. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.